Hey guys, it's Christopher McGee for Health and Fitness The Truth. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're gonna go over all the how-tos for the deadlift, one of the most critical and basic lifts of all the barbell lifts. Let's get it. In this video, as in all these videos, we will go over prime mover muscles for this lift, what the origin and insertion points for those muscles are. There's a lot of muscles very active in the deadlift that are stabilizing. So I'll mention those. They're not prime movers, and I'll declare which ones are the prime movers and which ones are just critical for stabilization. And of course, we'll give you the good cues for a good deadlift, and I will execute a good deadlift for you guys, okay? Prime movers for deadlift are really four of them. Okay, there's really four prime movers here. You're looking at glutes and quads, and you're looking at your quadratus lumborum, and you're looking at the lower section of your erector spinae. As far as stabilizing muscles go, you've got a lot going on in the back, okay? A lot going on in the back. So I mentioned that one of the prime movers is the erector spinae, but the lower segment of it, the part of it that deals with the hip hinge, the part that goes from the top posterior of your iliac crest up to your ribs and into your vertebral column. That part is moving, but the part that's from your mid-back all the way up to the crown of your head, that part of the erector spinae is critical for stabilizing and making sure that your vertebrae aren't in a flexed position. So erector spinae is a critical stabilizer muscle here. You're also looking at lats being a critical stabilizer. You're also looking at rhomboids and traps and teres major. That's pretty much it. Let's look at origin and insertion points. All right, let's use Ozai, who looks like he's ashamed of himself, standing in the corner here, to go over these origin and insertion points. So I want to mention both the prime movers and the stabilizer muscles and point them out. We'll just go over it as quick as we can. All right, so let's start with the prime movers, and it's convenient that he's turned around because we'll start with the glutes. Okay, the glutes on each side attached to the top posterior and all the way down of the iliac crest here. They also insert onto the sacrum here, all the way down almost to the bottom, and they come over and down, okay? And they insert in a long line all the way down here. So it's kind of a wide, long insertion point. Okay, but let's turn Ozai around for the quads. Okay, and if we look at quads, again, we've got a muscle that has one insertion point down here on the tibial tuberosity, but as it comes up, it branches into four different splits, okay? And one comes here, and one comes all the way up to this side, okay? One goes around to the back and kind of wraps around the back, and one crosses the hip joint and inserts right there, okay? So that's your quad. Okay, then let's turn Ozai back around. Okay, and now let's look at quadratus lumborum. Quadratus lumborum goes from the top of your iliac crest on the back side, just straight up into the bottom of your 12th rib, okay? And that's quadratus lumborum. And then, like I said, the lower segment of erector spinae, if you recall, if you've seen any of the other videos, erector spinae is this large massive muscle that starts from back here and comes into, it attaches onto every single vertebrae on both sides, right? And then it comes from the vertebrae, it has attachment points from one vertebrae to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, all the way up the chain, all the way up to the base of the neck, okay? And it also comes from these vertebrae and comes out onto the ribs once you get up into the ribs. So it's this massive muscle that goes from hips all the way to the bottom of your head, but we're talking about the lower segment as far as what is actively moving as one of the prime movers for the deadlift. So you're looking at the part of the muscle that goes from the posterior hips along with the quadratus lumborum that covers this space and comes into the vertebrae, okay? That's the part you're looking at, okay? The rest of it is a stabilizing muscle to keep the rest of your spine all the way up here, all the way up, stable as you lift the bar. Okay, and since we've talked about the rest of erector spinae as a stabilizer muscle, and we finished the other prime movers, let's go ahead and talk about the other stabilizing muscles here. So let's talk about lats first. Your lats are a huge muscle, the origin of which starts at T7, or thoracic vertebrae number 7, all the way down into the sacral region, okay? Into the sacral region, and that's its origin point, okay? So it's this wide, broad muscle, and it goes from there and wraps. It also it touches onto the posterior aspect of your iliac crest, comes up, it touches down on several of these ribs, it touches down on the base of your scapula, and it goes forward and it comes through and attaches onto the front side of your humerus. Okay, so it goes through, it's the back of your armpit. The muscle that creates the back of your armpit is your lat. So on the front, it comes through right here and it inserts right in here. So that's your lat. We already mentioned erector spinae, we've got lats, so everything else is really a matter of keeping your scapula back and down, which includes your rhomboids, traps, and your teres major. And rhomboids come from T5 down to like T7, and they come up, okay, and they help pull the scapula in. Teres major comes off the base of your scapula and goes straight out, inserts onto the outside of your humerus. And then, what am I not getting? Oh, your traps. Your traps are a giant muscle as well, coming from the top of your spine, wrapping all the way down out onto the spine of the scapula, okay, and then coming from the spine of the scapula all the way down. So you can see how all of that is just keeping these backing in and down. Of course, those eyes scapular fused, so I can't move them around and show you. But that's what the rest of the stabilizers are and what they're doing and where they are. Cues for good movement on the deadlift. First of all, let's look at where you want to put the barbell. So I talked in my last video about doing the bent over barbell row. You're probably gonna start this movement with having the barbell on the floor, but just for the convenience of putting the plate weights on the barbell, you're probably gonna wanna put it on the ledge, okay? On the ledge, on the rack. And if you're gonna start with it there, just so that, because the deadlift is going to be, for most people, and it should be, on a really well-functioning body, deadlift should be your heaviest capacity lift. You should be able to lift more on a deadlift than any other lift, okay? There's just a lot more muscles involved. It's a shorter arc of movement, stuff like that. But with all that weight, you don't want it up here, right? Shoulder height, like for a squat, and then just have to deal with, you know, taking it to a front rack and putting it down and getting it down on the floor safely. So just start with the ledge close to the floor for the convenience of putting the plate weights on, and then you can pick it up with a good hip hinge and just carefully, with good alignment, put the barbell on the floor. Step number 2 is, as always, when you're doing anything with the barbell on a rack, you face the rack, okay? Don't get behind the rack and come out from it. Step 3 is gonna be hand placement on the bar. You're gonna want your hands slightly wide of your knees, and you're gonna want your feet slightly wide of your hips. So if your feet are slightly wide of your hips, just look down at where they are and place your hands a little bit wider than that, because you don't want your hands running into your knees as you drop the bar over and past your knees for the deadlift. Next thing you're gonna wanna do is, with good hip hinge mechanics, take the bar off the ledge, or if you're starting on the ground, then with good hip hinge mechanics, you'll start in position A of the deadlift, which is with the barbell on the ground. If it's on the ledge, put it on the ground and start from there. So once you got the barbell on the ground, again, make sure you got good posture to begin with before you even bend over. Right? Before you even bend over, start with your pelvis right under your spine, right under your shoulders, and your shoulders back and down, and your head right on top of your shoulders. Good posture to start with that you come back to at the top of each rep for your deadlift. Start there, and then with good hip hinge mechanics, nothing rounding throughout your spine, and your shoulders not protracted forward, and your head not looking forward, okay? So keep all of that in line as you bend over. Grab the bar where your hand placement ought to be, and you'll pick it up. Now here's, I could just say pick up the barbell, but there's a clear, proper mechanic for when you start hinging your back to come fully upright. The spot in the movement up from the bottom of the deadlift, the spot you want to start bringing your hips forward and hinging your hip back to the top of this movement is the point at which the bar gets to your knees. From the ground to your knees, it's essentially a leg press, okay? You're just pressing your legs into the ground, and your hip hinge is gonna keep pretty much the same angle until the bar gets to your knees, at which point, because your shins are no longer in the way, you can bring your hips forward and your shoulders right on top of your hips. So that is your deadlift from point A to point B, and then you just return from point B to point A with good hip hinge mechanics again. And that's something that's really important. If I just took you from point A to point B and then just said go back to point B or point A, what a lot of people do is they focus on all that good alignment, picking up and getting to the top, and then they're like, cool, I did the rep, and they round out their back, putting it back down. Not what you wanna do, right? You wanna focus on good mechanics all the way down, and what you're gonna find really probably most difficult is not allowing your shoulders to protract forward and down. Because you're lifting a lot of weight, or conceivably, you could be lifting a ton of weight in your deadlift. And so as you hip hinge forward, gravity is acting on however much weight you've got on that, and your shoulders have to stay pulled back and down. And that's where all those stabilizers in the back become critical that I mentioned. The rhomboids, the traps, the teres major, and the lats, all of that is helping to keep your shoulders pulled back and down, okay? So make sure you're getting that. And then you just repeat that movement, right? From point A to point B to point A to point B, however many reps you're gonna do, however much weight you've got on there is up to you, right? So there you go. All right, so let's go through deadlift while I talk through those cues again, okay? I've got my barbell on a ledge just under my fingertips, or just under where I'd be able to grasp it from fully upright, which means I don't have to lift with my arms and shoulders and traps in order to get it off the ledge, which I don't want to do for the weight that I could be putting on a deadlift, right? So I'm gonna pick it up. I need good hip hinge mechanics to get it here, okay? I put my hands just wide of where my knees are gonna be. My feet are just slightly wide of my hips, and my hands are just slightly wide of my knees, okay? I'm gonna drop it, and I'm gonna start my deadlifts with the barbell on the ground. So, again, feet about slightly more than hip width apart, right? I wanna start any lift with good posture. So pelvis right under my spine, under my shoulders, head right on top of my shoulders, shoulders back and down, okay? This is how I wanna start any lift. And the more your back is involved in a lift, the more critical that becomes. And the deadlift is heavy on the back. So really focus on good posture. I wanna start with the bar. Actually, didn't mention this in the cues, but I'll mention it now. I want to start with the bar right over my feet, almost running into my shins. And I want the bar, as much as I can make it, to travel up in a pretty much straight line from there through the lift. Okay, I'm gonna reach down with good hip hinge mechanics, grab the bar just slightly wide of my knees. I'm gonna keep the hip hinge pretty much right where it is until the bar passes my knees, and then I'm coming with the hips forward and through, maintaining my shoulders back and down, okay? And it's just the opposite on the way down. Hip hinge, hip hinge, hip hinge, bend the knees, hit the ground with it, okay? I'll just do a few in a row. Something you see a lot is people having one palm forward and one palm back on the deadlift. It's called a switch grip or a flip grip. And the point is, you've got so much weight lift potential on a deadlift that it becomes a bottleneck how much weight you can hold on to in the barbell. If I grab the bar, could you come a little closer? Thank you, mysterious cameraman, whom no one will see. So, if I've got a ton of weight on here and it becomes cumbersome for me to be able to hold on to, right? Like I do a lift and I'm like, holy crap, I can't even hold on to it. It's because, even if I close my thumb around here, the weight, it drags and there's nothing to hold on but the curling of my fingers. But if I switch my grip and have one palm back and one palm forward, the weight rolling out of one hand just rolls it further into the other. So it's a much stronger grip. And you see it with all sorts of lifts. All right, guys, thanks for watching the video. Hopefully me and Ozai and my mysterious cameraman are doing a good job educating you on these lifts. Let me know if you like what you're seeing. We can have a discussion in the comments. Let me know if you have any questions about the deadlift. We can go over it. If you like it, hit that like button and share if you think you know anybody that would appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next video, guys.